Do you know what troubles me most about humanity? Are the religions, including the Christian religion. Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism. Buddhism might not be a religion, but these institutions are troubling to me, even as a minister. I came up raised in the church 4 or 5 times a week as a young person. Joined the military at age 17. Wasn't long after I became an atheist. And so I just wasn't just a regular kid going to a regular church. I mean, this was a real teaching church. It had its issues, the people, but I really learned. I learned the religion. And at the same time recognized the frailty, the flaws in people, and came to a quick conclusion after leaving home that either all these people were going to hell per the religion, all people, or there just wasn't a deity, there wasn't a God. It was easier just to embrace the fact that there wasn't a God than that there was, and that every human being was going to hell no matter how righteous they proclaimed themselves to be. And it seems that might even be an issue today. It is an issue today, definitely. Because I'm speaking of maybe 50 years ago. But today, people don't hardly change. And so folks find their justification in demonizing someone else. If I can find somebody else that's worse than me, that validates me. That seems to be the common practice. I mean, we find this all the time on social media, the negativities and the harshness, the way folks speak to each other. And you give your opinion, and if your opinion differs than theirs, that you're demonized. And I guess to me that is a flaw in humanity. The flaw in humanity is not recognizing that no matter what it is we believe, we could be wrong. And that's it. That's logic. All those years, I was an atheist for like 10 years after I joined the military. And I knew there was no God, no deity. It didn't make logical, scientific sense to me that there could be. But even in that, even knowing that there was no deity, that's where I was at the time. What I also knew was that no matter what I believed, I could be wrong. That's the logic. That's the logic. That's the good sense that's lacking, folks, whether they're in the science community denying a deity or whether in the religious community, affirming that theirs is the right way. The truth is, nobody really knows, okay? And so this is where the religions trouble me, because we've had a lot of issues across this planet because of religions, a lot of wars, a lot of killings, a lot of death, a lot of exploitation. And I don't want to hear the atheists clapping either, because there have been just as many wars, just as many conflicts of those who don't believe in God, and often those who don't believe in God simply use the beliefs of the people in God to perpetrate their ill will or their cravings, their striving for power, exploitation over this planet. So it's a human condition, often using religion. But what I'm believing is, and what I've seen even in my travels, that there have been good people that are within the religions, and that there are bad people within the religions. That there are good people outside of the religions, and that there are bad people outside of the religions. And it's the good people that I'm speaking to right now. That's what we need to speak to. And so what I want to suggest to you is just the logic and the good sense of just recognizing, first of all, if we can't determine a God or, a deity, how could we? How could that which is created comprehend that which created? If I took a saltine cracker, put water on it, covered it in a glass for about a week and a half, little green furry stuff would start growing on that cracker. What are the chances of that green furry stuff comprehending me, their creator? Okay? And so, I mean, that's a valid question. And on the other hand, what if there was no creator and poof, did come out of the same, just out of nothingness, out of a big boom, a big bang? Okay. Still, what we can come to the conclusion is that we've all emanated from that same source. We are related to each other, and we have no good reason to harm each other, or to alienate, or to ostracize. What would the good sense of that be? So what are you saying? I'm just saying I believe there is a place for us to be well. That we have a short time on this planet. Now see, I'm a believer that we don't die. I believe that we are not our bodies. And I'm not taking it from a religious perspective. I'm taking it from a scientific perspective. That animated part of us, that thing that keeps this body aware, awake, alive. That's the real part of us. I used to tell the kids in detention when explaining this, if I were to cut off your hand, would that change you? Well, probably. But not really, not you. Because this body is not you. Okay? So to me then, we are related. We are immortal in a sense. And that really truly is all we know. And really, truth be told, we don't really know the immortality part. That's simply a part that I've gravitated to myself. Okay? And so what I'm sharing with you today is because I've really studied the holy books, especially the Bible. Various translations, various interpretations, really in my seeking, in my seeking to know. And I want to share with you this. When I came back in as realizing or believing that there was deity, I recognized that whatever deity was, it wasn't what I was taught to believe that it was. And so I came back into this thing with a desire to find out, to figure out. And so that to figure out really, to understand, to seek, to knock, to ask, truly, is to lay all your beliefs on the table and say, I'm not even embracing any of that stuff. I'm seeking to find truth, and that truth may very well and probably will challenge what I have raised to believe. And I don't think many people are willing to do that. Most people are judging the realities of life, the truths of various religions, the truths of believers and non-believers through the lens of what we already believe. But what if what you already believe is false? And I'm not coming harshly, okay? I'm just saying that each of us, I believe, we need to expand our worldview toward our genesis. Towards humanity's entering into this place, and every other animal for that matter. How did it happen? Kind of hard to tell, right? What I say to the atheist, and this isn't really there's a God or there's no God, but I have to believe that something has happened because, when we look at all of the creatures, when we look at ourselves and we look at the birds and I'm in the perfect place for this message, I guess. And all the creatures on this planet, from air, land, sea, we all have primarily the same type internal organs, maybe in a different place, a different shape, or a different number of them. But we're all pretty similar. To be randomly popped up creatures, on this planet that evolved into this or evolved into that. And I'm a believer in the concept of evolution. The concept of mutation, that is. But I have a difficult time believing that there wasn't that which we've emanated from with intent. But still maintaining the logic that there may not have been, okay? But there may have been. But there may not have been. I think what the problem are the holy books. I think the holy books probably satisfied for a particular time, thousands of years ago and all. But then as we have evolved, intellectually and technologically, and the earth has shrunk, because of the internet. I was just looking at one of my Facebook friends a couple of days ago in Indonesia, in a little village that looks sort of like this surrounding right here, and they're Muslim, and they were wearing like the Muslim garb, and you might find a little motorcycle, and they had fruit just laid out that people were picking and eating, and just total. And I was looking at that scene from inside my home, from inside my office, at my desk, at my computer. Totally different environment. See, the world shrank because of our technology. So people aren't as foreign as they were 100, 200, 1,000 years ago. And we recognize that these folks are no different than us. There was this little girl, she was probably about 6 or 5 years old, wearing her little, head covering Muslim garb, robe, whatever, all the way down, and big old glasses on and tennis shoes. And she was like doing, how the kids do today with their fingers, the peace sign or whatever that is. And it was just so amazing. And then I wondered, when that little girl is 26 years old, what is her world going to be like? What is our world going to be like? We can't be demonizing people like we did, which justified the segregation that our religions taught us. So the point I guess I'm making, even in our holy books, they were written by men. I know, well, you're a minister, you're an ordained minister in a Christian religion. I know that. I don't think this conflicts. I don't think it conflicts with us emanating from the same source. I think what it conflicts with are manuscripts written by the hands of men who didn't have the expanded worldview that we have today. The holy books which justified evil, the holy books which justified persecution, which justified wars and mass murders. Come on, open up the biblical record, the Old Testament scriptures. Killing masses of people, entire communities, entire cities, men, women, children, and animals, and then saying, God told me to do it. Come on now. I was just following orders. Like Lieutenant Calley, remember the My Lai massacre? I'm just saying, we have to begin to think. I mean, we do it in every other school of thought. We do it in the sciences, we do it in math, we do it in every school of thought that can be improved upon. But we choose to maintain 1,000 and 2,000-year-old understandings of the world, and even of our Genesis, our creation, based on the best minds had to offer at that time, okay? And I would submit to you that if those folks that pen the holy books that we reverence and revere as the words of God, if those folks were here, they were cutting edge for their time. But if they were here today, they wouldn't even be buying the things that we look at that they wrote back then. Because they based their insight, their understanding on the knowledge and the insight and the understanding that the people of the time had. So if they were to be writing their works today, they would be writing based on the insight, the understanding, the sciences, the reality that we have today. It is simply that simple. And so I think that what we have done over these years, passing down these same understandings and insights to our following generations and generations, we've done them a terrible disservice. Because we haven't improved upon that which was passed down to us. I mean, like every good parent, like I have kids. One of my kids has a bachelor's degree from the University of Cincinnati. Another one, my daughter, she's graduating from high school in a couple of weeks and going off to Florida A&M to pursue a political science and to become an attorney one day. It's her aspirations. And for me, personally, my thoughts? Well, at 50 years old, I decided to go to college. And at 60, I earned my MBA, 10 years. Night school, right? So I don't even really understand the whole concept I'm beginning to grasp of this regular college thing where you go to college right after you graduate high school. I went to boot camp, but I appreciate it because I think from every parent should want their child to be better than them. You know, I was holding a conversation with my daughter recently and about the social environment and the condition of black people in this nation today and whether things are going to get any better. And she had a depth of insight that amazed me. I didn't even challenge her. I didn't need to. I was so impressed. As I wanted to hear what she was thinking. And I said, have you thought about this? Yes. And she amazed me. So she decided to go to an HBCU. And back to my son who graduated from UC with that bachelor's degree in marketing. He has way past my income. And that's terrific because that's the way it's supposed to be. And I look at my daughter. Man, she's getting ready to be a shaker and a mover. And so I asked her then, because she has a heart to be a civil rights attorney, to be able to help folks like immigrants that come to this nation and that are suffering, and even illegal immigrants. She wants to be an advocate for people who are lacking. And so I asked her about the condition of black people in our society today. I asked her, do you think the situation is going to get any better? And she said no. She didn't think so. I said no. You know, I've been doing a lot of work in the communities. Like I spent 17 years going to juvenile detention every week talking to those kids. My wife has a preschool and a daycare, you know, trying to help people at even a younger age than I was able to reach. And we've had feeding programs in the communities in some of the project areas. The stuff that I put on TV and the stuff that I put on the internet are just out there to try to help people be well. I have two programs on cable. One is a spiritual program, and the other is an urban program directed primarily at the situations and circumstances of black people today in this nation. So my daughter has grown up seeing me and her mother always tending to the needs of people in our communities that are suffering. And so she has done a lot of volunteer work. My daughter, she volunteers. Her school had a certain amount of hours requirement to do volunteer work in the community, so she chose to work in feeding programs for the homeless. And you know, it wasn't long ago, about a month or so ago, her and her little friends from school are on the way back to a particular feeding program to feed the homeless. And I asked her, I said, how many more hours do you need? And she said, oh, we've already surpassed our hours. We're just doing this because we want to. Imagine that. My daughter has surpassed, I mean, that's same my motivation, but just to see these young people that were required to have community service hours, they've reached the hours, but now they're continuing to go to those places just to do the good work for the people that are in need. Amazing. So she wants to be a civil rights attorney. And again, I asked her, the condition of black people. What do you think? And she said it's not going to get any better. And you know, I said why? Because that's always been my driving force, thinking I can do something, making it better. She said, the problem are black men, black males. I'm like, oh, what? You know, and you know, automatically I'm thinking, that feminist thing, but I don't want to say anything. I just want to hear her. I'm a dad. I want to see her wheels working. I want to hear what she's got to say. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean black males? She said, well, who's killing most of the black males? Black males? Who's selling the drugs in our community? Black males. She said, it's not the black females, it's the black males. So she said, that's the primary issue. The things that the black males are killing each other, the black males are selling the drugs. Those are two primary issues that we have today. Now I want to backtrack a little bit. She passed on to me from one of her teachers, a brother that was hired on at my daughter's private school, real cool brother. We had him over to the house maybe a month or so ago. And sent me this link, this YouTube documentary on gangster rap, and it really opened my eyes to some things I wasn't totally aware of. The details. I knew it was harmful. I know how music is influential, and if it's rough music, it's not good. It's influential. I know in my time it was like Me and Mrs. Jones, and you know, it was like a lot of love songs, and we created a lot of babies out of that because we were influenced by our music back from the 70s and 80s and all. Okay, but my daughter had been considering that, and she watched a documentary, and she's been studying, and she's been learning and making observations on her own. And she told me, and I hadn't realized this. She used to have a Tupac. She has a Tupac T-shirt. And another rapper, I can't remember which one it was, but she said, I can't even wear those shirts anymore because what they represent and what they've done to our community. I was like, wow, man, this is my little girl. And I said, well, you know, there are women that follow. You know, there are women that are having the babies, these guys, so it's not like it's just these guys out there. And she said, well, you know, a woman, she gets pregnant, and she's pregnant for like 9 months. A guy can go ahead and get multi-women pregnant at the same time. It's the guys. And then, you know, so I'm throwing her stuff. I'm not arguing with her, but I'm throwing her other questions out there to get her thinking and to give me something to consider. I said, well, you know, as I understand, these HBCUs are now being inundated with applicants to the point where they're having to turn people away, putting people on wait lists and all. Even her. HBCU, all these young black kids are going to HBCUs, and a lot of black kids are not going to HBCUs. A lot of black kids are going to college now. I said, what about that? And her response was, out of all the kids, black kids that are going to colleges, they all have cousins that aren't. They all have brothers and sisters that aren't. So there are still more that are not that are. So the situation is still self-perpetuating. And I'm like, man, this is my little girl talking. I said, so you say there's no hope? She goes, I don't think there's any hope, Dad, but you can hope. Excellent conversation. Excellent conversation. But still, even in the midst of what might seem hopeless, she wants to become a civil rights attorney to do what she can to help. My child is better than me. I mean, I volunteered, and I did the best that I could, did detention every week based on, you know, the choices in my life limited, you know, like my education limited my exposure to things I could do. By the time I woke up, you know, I had already burned some bridges, but her and my son, they're like, they started young. We want our kids to be better than us. But the shame is, getting back to the religion, as much as we recognize the logic and the good sense and the responsibility and the stewardship of ensuring and encouraging to make sure that our kids are better than us, we don't do that with religion. We just give them the same old bowl that we were handed. Still dirty, still got some old crusted food on there from before. Here you go. That ain't it. You know, there's a story in the book of Genesis about how Cain killed his brother Abel, and he killed his brother Abel out of jealousy, because the scripture tells us that the offering that Abel gave to God was appreciated more by God than the offering that Cain gave. And what I want to suggest to us is to recognize, well, there's a poem by an old Lebanese poet, long past. His name was Khalil Gibran. It's called On Children. And he goes on to talk about how our children are not our children, that they come through us to be raised by us, but we don't own them. So in a sense, taking that concept and the offering, the difference in the offering between Cain and Abel, and what Abel was offering to the source had more value than what Cain was offering to the source. And so I'm suggesting is that even in our children, and as well in our understanding and insights of God via the religions which we've chosen, how worthy is that which we're offering back up to God? Have we improved it? There's another story in Scripture about a man that was like a landowner and had servants, and he had to go out of town. And so he left with his servants, one a certain small amount of money, and they call talents, maybe 5 talents, maybe 3 talents. Another servant with 5 talents, another servant with 10 talents. And he left town for a time. And when he came back, the servants came to him, and the one that the master had given 10 talents to, and said, "Here, master, I've developed, I've invested the talents that you gave me, and now here is what you gave me, plus much more that I made with it." And the master was happy and rewarded that servant. And another servant, the one with 5 talents, came back and said, "You know, I've taken the 5 talents you gave me, I've invested them, and I've moved them to create more, and now here's the 5 that you gave me, plus what I have made more with it for you." The master was pleased. Now the one with 1 talent, the master says, "Well, what have you done?" Well, he said, "You know, I knew you were a hard man, and I didn't want to lose the talent you gave me, so I buried it in the ground. And now here it is, I'm giving you back that which you gave me." And the master was angry, very angry. And he even took what that man had and gave it to one of the other guys. The point is, what was given to him, and I want to correlate that to religious understanding, that we've taken the holy book and we have buried it, and we have dug it back up and said, "Here, this is the same thing that they said 2,000 years ago. And why didn't you expand upon it?" The master would say. Well, because I knew you're hard, man, and I knew you didn't want me to change anything, so here's what No! As you begin to grow, in intellect, as you begin to grow in sciences and understanding and technology and all that, as the world begins to shape because of your shrink because of your technology, you should have been able to expand upon and increase upon that which you were given 2,000 years ago. Have you? No. This is it. And what I'm suggesting today, what we have are millions and millions of religious folks who are simply representing what was given to them and never having expanded or expounded upon it. And so our fathers were not faithful stewards. Our grandfathers were, our ancestors were not faithful stewards of that which they've been given, because we're still talking the same mess. We're seeing on the internet today people debating and arguing which religion is valid, which translation is valid, because this was here first. You have the Jews trying to say, their religion is more valid than the Christians. You have Islam saying, our religion is more valid, simply because the way you read, the Jews really read their historical account of Abraham is flawed. Then we're saying folks that even predate them, like from Egypt, and a lot of the stuff the religions have come from the libraries in Egypt and from some of their understandings, and ours is older. So since when has older insight and understanding been more valid than the newer insight and understanding? Never. So to me, it's a weak argument to tell me that which you had, which you were given, is one which you buried in the ground, and you can quote it back today, as being the most original, is the most valuable. No, what I'm suggesting is the most original is the one that hasn't been increased upon. It was given a stewardship over, and the stewardship was poor stewardship because it wasn't improved upon. Simply that. That's kind of rough. But I think today the reason we're in such a mess, the reason so many thousands years later we're still fighting over the silliness, that we're still at the point of gun, taking land away from a people and giving it to another people because some sort of biblical writing said that, and then you're taking a group of people that aren't even of that land, signing on to the religion that promises those folks that land, and now they're over there claiming it at the hand of a gun and with the backing of other powerful nations, simply for strategic advantage. And this is again where you find the people taking religious writings. They don't even believe the religious writings, and they're using them to attract folks who do embrace those religious writings, to allow them to exploit people already in a land, simply to increase the strategic strength of those who don't really believe, okay? There's a long way around it. But I'm just saying, man, come on. If God is God, if Allah is Allah, if Yahweh is Yahweh, if Krishna is Krishna, and a myriad of others, all humanity are related. We may look different. We may speak differently. We may have different ethnic cultures and practices. But we're all of the same source. And so then no matter what we call the source that we've emanated, we've all emanated from the same source, and we're all related to each other. And it's insanity for us to believe that if there is an intellectual source that is watching over us, that source would not have us carrying one for another. Okay? And so from my perspective then, I don't see the holy books as being a word from God. Even the Bible, the Quran, the Talmud, or whatever the Jewish works are, or any religion sanctioned by that which we've emanated. We just gravitated toward them, maybe by well-meaning people from antiquity, but they couldn't possibly have a bead on the reality of our existence and the genesis of our existence. And I believe, even as a minister who studied the Bible intensely, I'm telling you, Bible for years, on the floor, with different Bibles, different works, and studying and comparing and analyzing, and then trying with intellect to determine what they're really saying, rather than how they're being used for particular agendas. Okay, coming to a conclusion that the Bible is not at all what we've been taught to believe it meant. To recognize that the Bible is telling us that all humanity is well, and that it is our mandate to continue and to help each other simply to be well in this existence. That no one dies, that we all continue, and that there is no eternal suffering, but that we are all well by the source from which we've emanated. Our evils, our antics, our destructions against each other, the things that we do, the heinous crimes that we commit are a result of the environments from what each of us have come into, and the experiences that we've experienced all along the way. God knows us deeper than that baggage that we've been carrying, deeper than our ills. And so the Christian religion, I'm not perfect, I'm just forgiven. That is a very interesting perspective, to justify wickedness and still try to be well while everybody else is condemned. Come on now, the religion that came to this nation and all the indigenous lands all over this planet, exploiting the people at the point of a sword in the name of God. Come on now. You really gonna tell me you believe that was God? A nation that enslaved Africans to build this nation, a nation that genocided the indigenous natives that lived here. You're going to tell me that was at the hand of God? Oh, jeez, man. More to the point, the peaceful people were more at the hand of God than the treacherous oppressors. Man, I could tell you some stuff now that make your head spin just out of your Bible. It's not what we've been taught. There is an eternal wellness for mankind. We are well, and not for the reasons you may think. And we'll have to cover that in another program. How's that? But anyway, I want to assure you that you are well. And I want to thank you for joining me and listening, and I want to invite you to listen again. You take care. Bye.